Hey folks, welcome to the Beans and Dice podcast. In today's episode, Carlos and Mitch catch you up on SoBo, Southern Board Game Fest 2022. Stick around.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
All right, guys, welcome back. I know it's been, a month now, huh, Carlos? We messed up, Aaron. We messed up.
That flew fast.
Well, we were busy. We were both busy. So, you heard in the intro, SoBo, Southern Board Game Festival, Carlos and Rob and Dan came down to Louisiana for my hometown festival. We hadn't had it in a couple years. It's only its third year of the festival in Lafayette. It's a small fest, obviously, in a third year, mostly open play. A lot of the extra trappings that we've had in past years, like tournaments and board game flea markets and those kind of things, we didn't do this year because for 2 years in a row, we planned this big thing and then it would get canceled because of COVID, and it was just really disheartening, So this year, the guy in charge, John, he decided, you know what, we're just going to focus this year on having a con. So it was mostly open play, a little bit of guided playthroughs. There was like a trivia tournament from this Gen Smack company that had a game there, but mostly open play with the library. And it all benefits a local organization. And it all benefits a local organization that helps kind of at-risk youth with after-school tutoring and programs and things like that called New Hope. So all the proceeds go there. So it's a really good cause and a lot of fun as well. It was a 2-day event, and it was planned initially as a 3-day event. We scaled down, but next year it should be back to kind of fuller capacity of what we're looking for. We did sell all 300 seats, but about half of those badges were pre-COVID, and so I think some people may have forgotten about their badges in the ensuing 2 years. So attendance was down a little bit this year, but the past 2 years it was big and growing. The first year it was in a science museum and completely sold out. The next year was in the ballroom at the university where we had it, and it was pretty much packed. So this year we actually got some other rooms. Didn't need them as much this year, but I'm sure next year we'll be back up to capacity. So if you're in the area around the March time, I don't think we have an exact date for next year. Invite everybody to come out to Lafayette for SoBo.
I got to say, I was really impressed with the organization of the con. I was very impressed with the description and what was shared about who they benefit. Right, that was all stuff I didn't really understand until we showed up to the con. I got to meet John, right? His name is John. I believe John was in charge of the program. What was his name again?
Right. His name is John Newman. Actually, there is a picture of you, I think it's you and him, at CMON Expo years ago. Someone shared that picture a while back and was like, hey, I know that guy.
No way. That's a throwback.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. So I guess we've met before, Atlanta. And John explained who they're fundraising for, how they're doing it. And these are all things that I really enjoyed talking about because I got to learn a little more about how to take a passion of yours, right? Because we talked about it. I have kids in different baseball programs, different high school programs, ROTC. There's always fundraisers going on, and they always tend to revolve around things that I'm not super interested in, golf tournaments and such. Right? And John talked about how that's not his thing either. His thing is board games. So he started doing this event, and this event really, the Southern Board Game Fest, really has been, a godsend for being able to raise funds for this organization. So it really is putting something into my heart, planting a seed in my heart to find an organization locally and find a way to support it with our board game group, right? These are the things that got me thinking about. So the big picture piece of it. The organization and structure, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's mutually beneficial because it's easy to get donors and sponsors if it's like, hey, we're helping this after-school program, than if I'm saying, hey, we're a bunch of middle-aged guys wanting to get together and play games, So that helps a lot. It helps both of us.
Right, because they did have sponsorships. They did have game giveaways. They had donations. I believe Stronghold provided some donations. I believe there were some games provided for giving away from Stegmaier, Stonemaier Games. Am I right?
Yeah, there were, I think it's 57 play-to-win games that if you play the game at least one time, if you check it out, your name gets put in a hat. At the end of the day, they draw the hat, and you go home with it. Stronghold was a big sponsor. Actually, Bonneker was supposed to be there, but with the rescheduling, he wasn't able to make it happen. He was supposed to be kind of like the big headline guest back before COVID in 2020. But yeah, Stronghold's a big supporter. Stonemaier donates a lot of play-to-win games. I know that there's some others. I don't want to leave any out, so I won't make an exhaustive list there.
Yeah, but you can find out more information on SoBo's website. You can just Google Southern Board Game Fest.
SouthernGameFest.com.
Yep. SouthernGameFest.com. Where's the bow? I mean, it's got to be like...
Yeah, so that's one thing actually I should bring up in our planning meetings. We got to get consistent with our branding. So the Bo is board, right? So I don't know why Southern Board Game Fest isn't in there. Maybe it was too long of a URL. Who knows?
Yeah, you had to pay for extra letters when you buy that URL. I gotta say, the organization was top notch. There was practices going on the day before. Kind of you and your how do you pronounce his name again? Hang on, I don't want to say Shanghai.
Sagan.
Sagan. I kept messing up his name. The organization was real strong. I watched Sagan run around. You and the others in the group, you all had binders, you had timelines, you had events, you had meetings to make sure everybody was on the same page. There was, I think my favorite part was that snack area. They were selling snacks at great prices, donuts, snacks, coffee. Buy 1 cup for the day and you refill the rest of the day. I think I drank a ton. I couldn't go to sleep. The last night we were there, I could not go to sleep. I had so much coffee that day. The gameplay setup, the library, the organization of the play to win, the demo tables. And then we had Jesse and Melissa, I believe it was, from iHeart Board Games. If I'm right, Jesse and Melissa, right? And they were in the front. They had this beautiful setup. So they had this game topper all set up. The Holmes, which is what I have, same game topper where they got the nice wood ingrained corners and edges. But they had their whole streaming setup over there. And they were streaming nonstop most of Saturday and Sunday right to their Twitch the whole time. They even invited us out. We got to play Viticulture live on their table and chat with some of their viewers. So, I mean, the setup of the con was great. In the ballroom was gorgeous. The AC was kicking cold. These are all reasons or things to think about if you're going to host a con that matter. Access to food, access to water, access to an ATM, cool rooms, right? Not overheated. Because I can't, people can put more clothes on. You don't want me having to take clothes off because it's too hot. And then
I get my mind. One of my favorite things about the organization of the con is Waiter. So I know you don't know what Waiter is, or maybe you do now. Waiter is kind of like Uber Eats, but we have it here in Louisiana. What's really cool is, I don't know if Waiter was a sponsor this year, but I know they were a big sponsor in the past. But either way, we had an agreement with them where not only would they deliver your food to the university, but you could insert your table number, and all the tables had numbers, and they would bring the food inside to you to your table, which is so convenient because I'm sure everybody's heard the story. Like whenever I Uber Eat or DoorDash something at the Dice Tower retreat, they couldn't find me. I had to go out to the front, and then I shoved that burrito down my mouth coming around the corner so I wouldn't miss any more gaming time. We didn't have to do that.
I think you asked me in Orlando if I knew if I could talk to the person in Spanish because I think they only spoke Spanish at one point.
Yeah,
that's nuts. But you're right, Waiter, because Waiter brought us my first po' boy from Pops. If I remember correctly, the place was Pops.
Yep, Pops Po' Boys.
We used Waiter. We told them what table we were at, and they brought me a fried shrimp po' boy that was to die for. Now, the piece that I'm sure wasn't planned or organized that I loved so much was the fact that there was a food and music festival going on at the same time on campus.
Yeah, it was like less than a 5-minute walk, cat a corner. It's a Festival Acadien. There was some great food there. In fact, next time we have a meeting planning for SoBo next year, I want to try to organize it to where we have it at the same time. I mean, it's a win-win in my opinion.
It's a huge feature. Huge feature. I mean, over in Dice Tower retreat, we were hauling off to find the local Subway, right, to get some sandwiches. Having that food fest there, my family even came out. They went, ate. I had jambalaya. I had some of the best peach cobbler ever. I mean, it was amazing.
And boudin balls?
Oh, them boudin. My kids are still talking about them boudin balls. It's like, what's that fried thing in the shape of balls? Like, it's a boudin ball. It's like rice and sausage.
The N is silent. Boudin.
My English is not my first language, and Creole is
French.
nowhere near it. So that was kind of like the layout, the idea of what we're getting into. They had demo rooms, or we call them demos, but they really were full-on games that y'all were playing.
Yeah, so they were guided. So they used to be called demos. A couple years ago, we changed the verbiage to guided playthroughs, because if you go to Gen Con and you play a demo, it might be like, hey, play a couple rounds. But a lot of us still call it demos. But yeah, it's a full guided playthrough where you have a game guru there to teach the game, and then just to kind of be there as an unbiased, like, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that kind of situation.
And what was nice about the demos and the guided playthroughs was it was set off in its own room on its own. So it felt like a different experience. So it allowed that to me to compartmentalize my experience, right? The gaming was done in the big hall, tall ceilings, lots of people everywhere. And then the guided playthrough was more of a close-knit in a smaller area with other guided playthroughs going on. Get to do that experience and feel that, differentiate that. So I think that worked out really well.
Well, good. I'm glad you like that. That was the first year we had the satellite room. We had a little bit of a problem because the Unpub area was supposed to be in that same room, and we didn't realize how small the room was. But I think it worked out great because what happened was the Unpub people that wanted to play test their games they were working on set up kind of in the foyer, right where you're walking into the main ballroom, and I feel like they got a ton of foot traffic, a lot of walk-ups. So I think it benefited them, and it was just a cool thing to stop by and see all the unpublished games being played as you're walking into the main gaming hall.
See, I thought that was all planned out on purpose because I literally did that as I'm walking in and out of the hall to go to the restrooms, head to the music festival, right? In and out of the convention area, I got to walk by these unpublished games and I asked questions, right? Because, the designers they're always there to talk to you about their games. I just asked random questions as I walk by to say, oh, what does that do? And, how far along is this design? It worked out really great. And we ended up actually doing a demo playthrough of one of the games, which we'll talk about as we get through some of the stuff that we played. But I thought that was a planned setup. So it sounds like it was accidentally wonderful.
It was a happy little accident. Yeah.
It was happy little trees, happy little accidents. Bob Ross going on here.
Yeah, exactly.
So mad props to whoever led and organized and participated in that con. It was a small con, but it was well planned out, efficient, and fun. That was the key, the fun there.
Well, thank you.
I wish it could have been a little longer.
Thank you guys so much for being there. Yeah. So, like I said, it was initially planned to have been a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. Hopefully, we'll be able to be back to that next year a little bit longer, but at least we got to play on that Friday night after setup for a few hours. But thank you guys so much for coming. You guys really added to the enjoyment of the weekend for me.
It was great meeting a lot of those folks in person. I got to meet BJ, I got to meet Jay Bell, got to talk with John. I got to be introduced to and meet Jesse and Melissa, and we got to talk a little bit about audio and video setups, those kind of content creator conversations that I don't often get to have, because as much as I love Rob, that's just not his thing. So like he and I will talk board games, but we won't talk tech and setups and video and audio. So just getting that different kind of conversation was great. So I was glad to go out. Actually, I drove out there on a Wednesday night. We got there Wednesday night. So we'll give y'all a little bit of an update on how we experienced it, right? It's about how we game. So me and my family loaded up into our minivan on Wednesday, and we drove out there. We got a baby. She was less than 7 months at the time that we headed out there, and so it was a lot of stoppages. Took us a long time, but we got there Wednesday night, and then on Thursday, Mitchell drove out and joined us for St. Patrick's Day. We got to explore the World War II Museum. We got to eat some breakfast out there. I know Rob got introduced to the Café Ola, and then
Olé.
And then the those little beignets, those French pastries that are covered literally, like, folks, I had some beignets and I ordered some afterwards. They give them to you in this little white bag, right? And unlike I was stunned because it was like there are 3 little beignets in this little white bag, and when I got done eating them, I look in the bottom of the bag and there was like a ½ inch of white powdered sugar in the bottom of the bag.
Cocaine,
right? That's what it looked like. But it felt like I had gone to Five Guys burgers and fries, and where they kind of just dump extra fries in the bottom of the bag. It's like they dumped extra sugar in there. So I'm sitting in the car asking myself, like, what do I do with this extra sugar while we're driving to New Orleans or to Lafayette? And I'm like, well, I could fold it. I can kind of down it, pour it down my gullet. And I'm like, no, that's just too much sugar. But I very much enjoyed the cuisine in New Orleans. We got to experience Bourbon Street.
Whew.
Yes, I experienced it. We had some daiquiris, we had some hurricanes, we hit O'Brien's, we got some late night pizza, right? And
that pizza was horrible, and you guys were just slobbering it down. It was so greasy.
I think I even ate your pizza because you couldn't finish yours.
I couldn't eat it. It was too greasy.
It was good. Like I guess any pizza after a certain hour and a few drinks is amazing.
Yeah, I don't think you could feel anything at that point. You were just you were gone.
Those daiquiris are strong out there. I had 2.
And you only had what? 2. I knew you were going to say it.
I had 2. I had 2 drinks, folks. This is not crazy Carlos going wild. This is like, ooh, let me have a hurricane because I want to try that. That's O'Brien's. It's one of the oldest pubs in New Orleans. Now, Robert and I actually at work, we had family days at Universal Studios. And whenever our families were out there together, we'd always go eat at O'Brien's. I didn't realize that O'Brien's was a real place. I just thought it was a place in City Walk in Orlando, an Irish piano bar. So when Rob took us over to O'Brien's on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, I was stunned because it looked just like they did a whole mock-up of O'Brien's in Universal in Orlando, Florida. Had the same architecture, same color walls, same wrought iron, accents, same patios, same open patio that they have in the middle of it. It was really cool to see that it's like what we were used to we'd gone there 5 or 6 years in a row as families to see, wow, this is the real one. This is the one that was like 1800s established O'Brien's. So it was an experience.
So you brought the family to the one over there and the one on Bourbon Street too.
That's how we do.
The baby.
I always, me and my family, I don't separate. We do things together. Like I grew up not having a lot of experiences. I want my kids to experience stuff, to see stuff.
Even if it's an infant on Bourbon Street. I felt so bad for Melissa because it's like you guys were about to walk in and they were like, no. And you guys were like, come on, she's a baby. You think we're going to give her a drink? And the bouncer wouldn't let her in.
It wasn't the plan. Like the plan, we were going to go to Brandon's. We were going to get some Bananas Foster. I think that was the plan. We were going to go to Brandon's and get Bananas Foster. Nowhere near Bourbon Street. But we couldn't get in there. So then we were like, you know what? Let's just take a quick walk since we're near it on Bourbon Street to kind of get an idea what it's like. And we realized, whoa, this is crazy. And at that point, we're like, all right, we hit O'Brien's. I grabbed my Hurricane and whoosh, we were gone. We grabbed some side streets and made our way to pizza.
The looks that your wife got, that was so funny.
It was but I mean, we weren't the only one. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. There was another baby.
Except for that baby was doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, was that the one a snake wrapped around it or something like that?
Yeah, taking pictures with the street photography.
The thing that amazed me most about Bourbon Street is just the amount of liquid on the ground that I was trying to avoid in my flip-flops. That was just...
You were risking it, bro. You could have got like gangrene or some kind of, foot disease with your sandals. But it was great to just see it, to experience New Orleans for the first time. I think during the day we had some real good food. We ate some etouffee, some crawfish etouffee. We had some dirty rice. We had some red beans and rice. I mean, we ate like champs. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I took back from my trip to New Orleans was the food was amazing. The people were lovely, lovely, lovely people, and the food was amazing. The board games, we can pretty much do that anywhere, right? But the area, the experience is something that if you've not done it, consider making that a trip right around spring break time frame. Do some SoBo board gaming. Meanwhile, checking out parts of Louisiana for awesome food and awesome people. So that gets us to about Friday. Friday we check out the mall. The reason we went to the mall is
you don't want to. Well, hold on.
Oh, no, Thursday night.
Trying to game after Bourbon Street, man.
I kind of forgot about Thursday night gaming.
So we did the call-in show. So first we played a game of Orleans because that was the thing, the meta thing to play Orleans in New Orleans. And we did the call-in show. Then we went to Bourbon Street.
I don't even remember the order of operations of that night. Like, you're going to have to remind me of all these things.
So we played Orleans. We had all played that game before. It's a bag builder. And, we're playing on pretty much this abandoned area in the hotel because it's for breakfast. People are walking by. We're grown men playing a board game. And then we had the call-in show. People were passing by and then we're talking. They walk in and they see we're on camera and they're like, ooh. And they turn around. Some of the older people were like watching, like, what are those guys doing in the corner over there? It was interesting.
These people are weird.
Then we went to Bourbon. Yeah, we went to Bourbon Street. Carlos gets trashed. Then we go back and play Dinosaur Island Roar and Write. And not a heavy game, but it was heavy for Carlos that night. He was falling asleep between his turns. We would have to wake him up every time. The last few turns of the game, he was completely out. We could not get him up. I had to score the game for him. Realized he had skipped the majority of what he was supposed to be doing. Rob goes to the bathroom. I pick up the game. Carlos jerks awake and has no idea what's going on. He claimed that no time had passed. And at 1 minute, he was holding his pencil, and the next minute, everything was gone. He was holding the pencil not that long ago, even while he was sleeping. But time,
it wasn't until you showed me the photographic evidence of me sitting upright, eyes closed asleep, holding a pencil that I realized, oh, it happened again. It's not the first time I've fallen asleep playing games.
You got a bad track record there, man.
Listen, I'm up early with the kids. I'm already not sleeping well with the baby at home. I figured falling asleep would happen, but you throw in a hurricane and a daiquiri and then a bunch of pizza, yeah, I think I was out. Like to the point where I don't even remember how that day
was
went.
That. I I was worried you wouldn't get back to your room. Like, I think I texted you if you're like, hey, you got to your room, man.
I didn't see that till the next
But
morning.
You made it.
Because I didn't respond to your text till the next morning because I went to the room and I was gone. I was out.
Yeah, that was interesting. But anyway, yeah, sorry. Now we can go back to Friday.
Well, before we go, let's talk about scores. I mean, I won Orleans. That's my first win ever.
Oh, I thought you were about to say you won Dinosaur Island Roll. I was about to say no way.
I don't know what happened with Dinosaur Island Roll Right. I'm not even putting that in my records as played that day. It didn't even show as a play. But I got 100 points.
Orleans.
Yeah, I beat Rob. That's amazing.
Yeah, you guys did really. I like the game, but I haven't played it a lot recently because I struggle finding the balance. So in that game, you can permanently dedicate your workers like to go and serve the king on this sideboard to get temporary like one-time benefits. But then whenever you do that, you're not drawing them from your bag and getting their ongoing actions. And so I always try to maximize, be as efficient as possible. So whenever I have nothing for them to do on my personal board, I'm like, why don't I send them to the king and get a little bonus so I'm not wasting them? But then the problem was my bag was so thin, I didn't get all their abilities. And that's a problem I run into every time I play that game. It's just something I haven't figured out yet. So that's definitely, you guys did that better than I did in that game.
No, I know your play style is one of gamescaper, game cleaner upper, and if you see pieces that aren't being utilized, you want to put them away. So I know that when you had those workers sitting on your board not being utilized, you couldn't help but like shove them somewhere else. Like, go work for the king, get out of my way. Now, I think that the detriment for that, folks, strategy-wise, is because Mitchell was putting these pieces, these workers, onto the king's board. I think it's the town square is what they call that area, on the town square board. You were starting to fill up those spaces. But the last person to place in a set area gets the bonus. So I got to plan a little more about where I wanted to send my people to the town square in order to kind of finish off something you had already started. So with you kind of shoving your guys up there, it'll allow me to capitalize and kind of finish what you started and not have to expend as many tokens to get that bonus like you did.
Right, yeah. And I guess I didn't realize that until later in the game that I was pretty much, you kind of don't want to be the first one to go to the town square in that game. And that play of it really made me realize that. I had never noticed that before. I mean, I knew, but I guess just strategically I didn't see the big picture of it.
I've never played to the town's board. Never went up there until I saw that you were starting to place, and I'm like, oh, I have an opportunity to double tap and finish that. That's when I started playing to the town's board. First time ever.
Yeah, I guess that's a game where you have to be more aware of the players around you than it seems at first. A lot of times it's easy to just get caught up in your board because you're doing actions, and there's some interaction on the where you're moving your meeple around. But yeah, that's one that you really have to be paying attention to each other, and I did not do that well.
You're right, and I know a lot of people like to call it more of a solitaire type game, Euro game, but I was watching to see what did you have left over that you could use on the town board. Did I have another round to do some stuff to then go to the town board, the town square board? So good game, Orleans, good game. One of Rob's, I think, top 10 for Robert Orleans. Tasty Minstrel, I think.
What used to be what was that company? What did the company that closed out? TMG.
Yeah, Tasty Minstrel Game.
Oh, that's what that stands for. Okay, never mind.
And then I'm hoping somebody picks it up again. I know that.
Yeah, I mean it'd be a pity not. It's a very popular game. There's a ton of expansions. It's got to be picked up by someone.
I know that someone's already picked up Crusaders. Thy Will Be Done, which is also a Tasty Minstrel game, so that one's going to be coming out again.
Man, that looks like a good game. Have you played it before? I've never played it, but it looks right up my alley.
I own it. I just haven't played it yet. I own it because I heard it's a great game.
You have such a huge shelf of shame. It's insane.
The whole thing is a shelf of shame. The whole thing. And thanks to you, I got to take one very big game off the shelf of shame, and we'll talk about that when we get to Saturday.
Yeah.
So Friday, we drive from New Orleans to Lafayette to get to the hotel to get set up for the gaming con. It was setup day, so you had work to do.
Right. Just getting the library in there, getting things kind of organized, and just making sure that everything was set up according to plan.
Yep, Robert and I and Dan, because Dan from Your Turn, a board game cafe out of Zephyr Hills, Florida, also flew in. So we got to meet Dan. He was already waiting for us in Lafayette. He was at the hotel. He had flown in earlier that day, so he was like bugging us on the chat. When y'all getting here, I want to get to gaming. So you guys scooped him up, headed over to the hall. By the time I dropped the family off, got them set up, and made my way over there, it was just in time for y'all to finish most of your setup and kind of get to and start some gaming. So they let y'all begin some gaming, and I think we gamed till like late. that night Friday?
Till midnight. Yeah. So I think we got access to the hall at 4 to set up, and we had quote unquote setup time until 12. So the plan was once we finished setting up, it wasn't going to take 8 hours. We were going to use that quote unquote setup time to do some gaming with the the people who were there to help set up to kind of get started early.
And I brought out one game that I brought with me that I wanted to try in kind of a bigger setting, and that was Liar's Dice, the Richard Borg version of Liar's Dice, which is a Liar's Dice with a board that adds a little more strategy. And I'm glad to say that I felt like that one really did hit off with our group. I think we played it multiple times. We were getting rowdy. We were slamming cups. We were getting mad at each other. We're attracting attention because people are looking over it like, what are those guys doing? I really enjoyed our plays of Liar's Dice throughout the con because I think we played that on multiple days.
Yeah, so I think that night we each won one time, and so the next day we wanted to do a tiebreaker. I had never played this version of Liar's Dice. I had played just, I guess you call it homebrew or whatever. So I had never played with the stars, which are wild, which add a completely new element to the game. But not only that, they're spaced throughout the board, not where necessarily a number 1 would be. Because the version I play, there's no board. It's just 1-1, 1-3, 2 1s, etc., etc. So it made it feel more board gamey instead of just dice and cups. I don't know which version I like better. This is definitely one where it requires so much more math in your head and gets some analysis paralysis in there, but it made for some really interesting results where it's like you're guessing there's 8 sixes, there's no way, but when you think about it, all those stars could potentially be a 6, and then there'd be that reveal, and oh yeah, there were that many. It made a kind of some stand-up movements.
I think the funnest part was when someone would make a crazy claim like that, and you think, oh, they must have a few of them under their cup. And then they reveal, and they had none. They had no stars. They had none of that number. They just were making a claim, hoping you'd call them, and they still won, right? Like everyone else had enough stars to fill that gap for them. So kind of that risk it for the biscuit type feeling. Liar's Dice, Richard Borg, great game. What game do you want to call out on Friday that was fun for you to play?
Space Space was one I'd never played. I played Machikoro, which is kind of the same idea. I like Space Space a lot better, theme-wise and mechanic-wise. I've been playing a lot of games actually on BGA ever since then. It's an intuitive game. It's a fun game, and just the way that game ended was insane. So we're playing the game. It was me and Connor's first time. I think it was a 5-player game. And you guys said, there's a card in here that says, like, if you charge it up 3 times, you win. And me and Connor were like, no way, that's crazy, whatever. Connor gets that card, and we don't even notice at first that he has it. You have to roll this number to charge it up 3 times. But then he had another card that if he rolled that number, he could charge up a different card. And so we realized he has 2 cubes on it. And we were like, oh my gosh, no way. And he's like, yeah, if I get this certain thing, then I'm going to win. He rolls it. He doesn't get it. I'm like, okay, good. The next turn, I get to 40 points, which is the in-game trigger. And I'm like, okay, I won. Like, no, the round has to finish. So if he gets the right roll, whenever it comes around to his turn, he's actually going to beat you. And he did. It was the last roll of the game. That dude won. It was insane. I still don't know how I feel about it. I feel like I was robbed. But it was, such an epic moment that I can forgive it. I can forgive it.
And I remember it because we were in that rule book trying to like figure out his little cycle, his little loophole that he created, and we're like, is that real? Does that really work? And we couldn't find anything that would prevent that loophole. We checked BGG, we couldn't find anything that prevented that loophole. I think all of us were on our phones looking at BGG trying to stop Connor from winning the game with that loophole, but he did it. We couldn't find it. We couldn't stop him, and he did it on the last turn. That's AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group, is the publisher of Space Base. I've played Space Base, I've played Machikoro, and I've played Bad Company. I think you played Bad Company with us at Dice Tower Retreat.
No, I think you guys played it at the retreat, but I didn't play it. I was doing something else.
Okay, you missed it. I would still say Space Base out of the 3 is still my favorite. Machikoro at the bottom, Bad Company somewhere in the middle, and then Space Base, I think, at the top.
Yeah, good game.
Yeah, and we played some Dice Throne Season 2. 2 plays for me of that game, and I'm still not. I know everyone calls me the dice-loving guy, dice-chucking guy. Listen, dice have their place, but sometimes I feel like gameplay you, right? And I really feel like in Dice Throne, gameplay you. Right? So not.
I agree. I mean, obviously there's some strategy because it's like Yahtzee, or it's like, what was that other game that did that a while back? King of Tokyo, where you're choosing which dice to re-roll and which one to keep. So there is some agency there. But yeah, you don't even get to pick your target. You're rolling a die, it determines your target.
That's
so it
really what bothered me.
Okay,
I just
there's
kept
pros and
getting
cons
picked the
to it.
target.
Have you played Shards of Infinity?
No.
Okay, it's a deck builder, and you're basically targeting people. There's like mana points and hit points. The problem with that game is if you're playing 2 players, it's fine. But if you're playing 3 players, then 2 people bully one person. Whoever the first target is, he's just going to lose, and then the other 2 duke it out. So I like that you couldn't do that, but with the way the dice went that night, it happened anyway. They just kept attacking you. But that won't happen every time, but it pretty much will happen every time in an odd number player count of Shards of Infinity, which is otherwise a great game. So there was something good to say about the mechanic, even though it's not ideal, I think.
Now, I know it's supposed to be random, but it randomly selected me a lot of times until I was the first one out. And I'm like, okay.
True randomness could have the same number 50 times. I remember somebody telling me a while back that some website has to fake randomness.
Is
that you were telling me
Apple's
that story?
iPod, yep. Apple's iPod has to fake randomness because people feel it wasn't random when it was literally random. If you get the same song 3 times in a row, that's random. That's like real random. Mm-hmm. So I got picked like 3 times in a row. I got bashed out of there. I was done. Y'all beat me. Y'all destroyed me. I was done. And that's Roxley game.
It is one of those games. I'm sorry to cut you off. That it's player elimination 1 by 1 by 1. So it can kind of suck for the people that get out earlier. Luckily, it's a pretty fast game. So that kind of counteracts that a little bit.
So that's pretty much our games for the first night, Friday night. And then we got into Saturday morning. We got up pretty early. Grabbed some quick breakfast, headed on out to the convention hall to get started. You had to be there early because you were actually working.
Right. I did get a game in, though, while I was waiting on you guys. It's called Circle the Wagon. It's a really quick, light card game from Button Shy.
That's that Pocket Game company, right? The company that makes all the little pocket games?
It's like in a little wallet, basically. And for such a tiny little game, I thought it was kind of interesting. It wasn't my favorite game because I don't like puzzle games. But basically, you have these cards, and they have 4 quadrants, and each quadrant is going to have like a type of land, like grass or mountain or something, and a symbol. And so if I remember correctly, I believe you get points for your biggest section of each like biome that's connected orthogonally. So you're making kind of a tableau in front of you, but also there are global goals, and I think there's a personal goal as well, where you may want pickaxes next to mountains or on mountains, because that makes sense thematically, right? But the cool thing is the selection. So all of the cards, however many cards there are in a circle, and you can either pick the one in front of you, and there's nothing that happens, or you could pick any one in front of you, really, but then your opponent gets all the cards that you skip. So it's like, do I take this trash card, or do I go get this really nice card and give several trash cards to my opponent? Several trash cards are better than no cards, right? So it was this kind of like, how do you want to play this thing? Do you want to give them cards, even if they're not the best cards, to get the better ones? And you have to find this balance. It was interesting.
It kind of sounds or feels like Ethnos, where you want to do some cool stuff, but you know you're going to be putting things out there for others. And that's an awesome feeling to have to decide when playing a game, is to value the action you want to take compared to what opportunity you're going to give to the opponent. Is it worth it? That feels like a great decision point in games.
Yeah, it was nice. Like I said, it felt like a true board game and not just a little, wallet game. So I thought it was nice. And I'm sure it can't cost a ton of money wherever it is you can get it from. So it might be a nice one to have, for traveling. And what I liked is the cards were multi-use. So I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that you play with X number of cards, but then the other card you don't use, on the back side is where they have like the secret and global goals. So there's some replayability. It was a nice use of the back of the card.
My first game for Saturday, I think it was Tiny Epic Dungeons was the first one I got into. I got to meet a guy by the name of Marshall. Now, Marshall had a badge on that said Marshall. I made some assumptions. I leaped into some assumptions. I assumed he was like a game marshal, and he had his area in the demo area or in the Gateway Games area.
He was a volunteer in the Gateway Games area. That is true. But also his name was Marshall.
I thought it was a title, not a name. But once we sorted that out, and I began calling him Marshall, Marshall had his copy of Tiny Epic Dungeons. I had brought my copy of Tiny Epic Dungeons. We looked at each other from across the hall, made eye contact, realized we were both into the same game, and like, let's do this. So he came over, we set up a copy, and we kind of worked through the rules. He had played it a couple times during the con as well, kind of trying to hash out the rules and figure it out. And we got our first game in to learn the rules. So that made me excited to play and to teach the rest of y'all how to play. Dan, Rob, and I was hoping to get you in there, but I know you were busy working.
Yeah, I think that's whenever I was doing a guided playthrough the next day that y'all played.
Yep, so-
Apparently, it's really tough from what I heard you guys saying, huh? It's not a tiny epic challenge. It's a big epic challenge.
It's an epic challenge in a tiny box because Marshall said they lost bad in their first 2 games. And then he came in and was trying to teach me the game. And I saw he was getting some of the rules wrong based on my reading. I hadn't played it yet. Just based on my reading of the rules, I saw he was getting some of the rules wrong. And I was like, maybe that's why they lost so much. But then we got trounced. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we're not doing something right. And then that following day, so on Sunday, we'll just skip to Sunday on that one, we ended up getting to play myself, Robert, Dan, and Marshall again. And this time we were like, all right, we're going to do this the right way, and we're going to win. We didn't even make it to the boss's lair. I think we found 2 minions. You got to find 4. You have to find and defeat 4 minions, then find the boss's lair to be able to get into the boss. We only got to 2 minions, and we died.
Does it get harder with more players to scale?
It gets harder with more players who are going to go off and do their own thing.
I remember you said, was it Rob that kind of just shut off on his own
Both
direction?
Rob and Dan. Both Rob and Dan took off. Rob went to one quarter of the map. Dan went to the other quarter of the map and just started opening doors to rooms, getting traps out there, getting beat up. The traps help reduce our mobility, our ability to move around the board to get to the goblins, because you can't let the goblins overrun you. Once you have to put a 5th goblin on the board, you lose the game. You have to destroy the big minions. You got to beat 4 of them in order to find the boss's lair to go finally beat up on the boss. But you got to do all that before your torch winds down. Right? So your torch is going to be burning every turn, every player turn.
Is that each player sharing, having their own torch, or you share one?
We all share one torch, and that torch is going to indicate when more goblins come out. That torch is going to indicate when all the monsters and goblins on the board activate. So every time we take a turn, we're moving that thing down the track. You can make decisions that do things, but also burn up track on the track for the torch. So I can do this cool spell thing, but it's going to eat up 2 bumps on the torch track. So you're kind of using it as a resource as well. And the only way to really replenish the torch is to defeat minions. Whenever you defeat a minion, you get to add 6 back onto that torch track. It goes 6 spaces back up. We only found 2 minions, and we couldn't. And they both kind of came out back to back. So like half of us were trying to fight one minion, while the other half were trying to fight the other minion. So it just wasn't enough concentrated firepower on one minion to kill it. So they destroyed us. They killed us all.
And so if one person dies, does everybody lose?
No, it's until the torch track goes down.
So wait, so there's no HP?
There is HP. You get knocked out. You get laid sideways. On your turn, the only thing you can do is stand up. You gain, I think it's like 4 health or something, a small amount of health, and no actions for you that round.
Well, that's nice. At least people aren't getting knocked out. But man, this is something Vassal talked about a while back. He did a survey, like what percentage of the time do you want to win a cooperative game? And for me, I want to win more than half the time. Not 100% of the time, because then it's like game plays you. This sounds like, from everything I heard you guys talking about, it is a very low percentage. I mean, would it be something if you sat there and planned out a whole grand strategy, it would be better to do? I mean, I'm sure y'all tried that, right?
And I'm with you. I'm more of the, I want to win 60-40. I want to win 60, lose 40, and that makes me feel like it's a good balanced game. This game, we're at 0. We're shooting 0 in 4 games. Nick Oben played. He found out at home how rough it was, too. We all started looking at FAQs, reading online, and the key thing about the game that we didn't grasp is it's not a run around, kick the door down, kill the monster, steal the treasure type game. No, it really is, you need to dictate the creation of the map. You've got to create the map in a way that is controlled so that you're always near the front entrance where the goblins are, so you're able to get back to the goblins. There's no point, and I'm realizing this now, to split the party up, which makes sense. Hey, that's the D&D joke. Don't split the party, right? You really all should stay at the same room, and you're working together to open a room, explore it, conquer it, move on, moving forward. The problem was when everyone went off on their own and started exploring in like 4 different directions, if somebody found a minion, we were clear on the other side of the dungeon. No way to go help them defeat that minion.
That reminds me of, have you played Cthulhu Death May Die?
I have not.
It's Cthulhu universe, but basically, cooperative. I played that game, I think, twice. Lost both. I hated it. My buddy Jeremy, you met Jeremy, he actually did a guided playthrough of it at SoBo. They lost within maybe an hour, and then they played again, and they lost again. I have never witnessed a game of Cthulhu where somebody won, and it's like, there had to have been playtests, right? They had to know that people like winning games. Like, if you want to sell these games, I don't know. That baffles me. I will say, though, that Tiny Epic Dungeons, I had some really cool components, just little colorful bits and things like that. It was nice to look at.
It was a beautiful table presence, the artwork on it. I love how they used meeples, screen-printed meeples, for all the bad guys, for all the bosses, for our characters. We had plastic minis, and I know that my buddy David Carlton has already painted a whole set of all those minis. He's already done painting them within like 2 weeks of receiving them. But the table presence was gorgeous. You throw in that neoprene mat that I also got, and it's a great, and I wanted it to be the dungeon crawler for me and my kids, but it's like, oh man, my kids are just gonna get beat up every time. I guess I just need to try it. Let them feel that life isn't fair. Sometimes the goblins win.
Yeah. I feel you. I mean, but Gameland, they do a great job with their Tiny Epic games. Though, while you were playing Tiny Epic Dungeons, literally right next to you, the rest of us were playing a copy of Tiny Epic Pirates, which I think we had all played before. Maybe Dan
at Retreat, you, myself,
well, you and
Nick.
I and Nick, right? Rob and Dan might have played it like once.
They played with me at your turn.
Okay, so I have to give them a quick rules refresher, and I won't belabor that game because we've talked about it on the show before, but it was one of the play-to-win games, and I think there were several copies of it. So we wanted to get our name in the hat for that. I mean, I already owned it, but they were interested. So we played that right next to you. But one game that I haven't spotlighted before in the show, I'll mention, it was another one of those games I got to play very briefly before you guys got there on Saturday morning. It's a game called Mandala. It's a 2-player game, simple component-wise. Basically, there are these 2 circles, and you have 6 colors that you're playing. And you can either play these cards in what's called your field, or you can play them in the mountain. The mountain is a shared area. You can only play 1 card there at a time. Whenever you play there, that's how you replenish your deck. If you're playing in the field, you can play multiple of the same color. And the idea is, in each circle, each color can only be in one area. So it's my field, your field, and the mountain. So the idea is whenever the 6th color is played to that mandala, that circle, it blows up. And whoever had the most in their field, it's kind of like area control, gets first pick of which cards they score from the mountain. And the way that the scoring works is it's 1 through 6. The colors are all going to be different values for you. Whatever the first color is that you get is going to be worth 1 point each. The second color you get 2 points. But the problem is once you have all scored all of the colors, the game is over. So the cards that for you are going to score you the most points are the ones that are going to be toward the end of the game. So it's like, do I rush the end of the game before my partner can score all the colors, or do I wait to end the game whenever I can get a bunch of this color that's going to give me the 6 points? It's kind of an abstract game, but I like it a lot. It's a quick 2-player filler game. Have you ever played this one?
I've not, but my first time seeing it was at SoBo. What'd you think of that linen player mat? So it's like a cloth mat.
Right. So I'd played this game before. I was actually teaching the game to Marshall, speaking of, I believe it was, whenever I played it, because it was in the Gateway Games area. Yeah, my buddy has it. It's cool, but it was frustrating for me. It's not solid-ish like a neoprene mat. So if you need to like move it or something, it's not like you can push it. It's not super player-friendly. It's a nice change-up, I guess, and I'm sure it makes the game maybe a little bit cheaper than a board would, but it never gets 100% flat. There's creases and the edges curl up a little bit, but for what it is, it works.
It looks beautiful. It kind of gave me the feels of like PAX Premier. I think it is with that cloth mat. I like the idea of a cloth mat. I see it start to crinkle up, and it's not quite neoprene. Real smooth for cards. So I could see it being a
close
frustration.
to neoprene. It's like a kitchen towel.
It's like cheesecloth. Cheesecloth.
Exactly.
No, I've not played that one. That one looks gorgeous.
What about you? What did you play after Tiny Epic Dungeons? I don't remember.
We did. I think really it was Ankh after that. So you had your learn to play or guided playthrough of Ankh. So this is me thanking you for helping me get a game, another big game off my shelf of shame. I own Ankh. It's on my shelf.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I tried to play it with you at Dice Tower Retreat. You wouldn't do it, and so you waited until it was a ticketed event with a limited number of seats to play it. But hey, I'll take it.
Okay, so to be honest with you, I had no interest in playing Ankh, and it wasn't until I started seeing some reviews talking about it being an awesome 2-player, talking about it being Eric Lang's like piece de resistance as the 2-player game of the series of these area control games that he has. Blood Rage, Rising Sun, Ankh, and I'm like, okay, so I want to learn the rules to see would this play well as a 2-player game. I want to give it a try. So I figured if you're teaching, I don't have to watch Rodney, I don't have to read the book. I'll just sit back, and because I wasn't 100% into it, like I wasn't like a diehard fan of Ankh, I wasn't looking forward to playing it. I could just sit and enjoy the teach and enjoy the play. Whatever I do, whatever I play, I don't care if I lose. I'm just going to move pieces around and kind of get a feel for how it works. So I went in with no expectations. But I'll tell you what, by the end of that game, like towards the end of that game, I was fighting for position. Like I was angry when I wasn't getting movement on the track.
I think you were you had a little rivalry there with Darnell, who owns our friendly local game store, Anubis. He wanted to play the game because Anubis is one of the gods. He didn't get to play as Anubis, but whenever he kind of crossed the river into your territory, you're like, "Hey, Darnell, what you doing, man? What you doing there?" You got a little competitive there.
It was great. Darnell was awesome because it's kind of one of those things where you come at me first, and I'm like, and people who play games with me before will know that I see red, and I just can't take it out of my, like, once you come and attack me in my own home, like, I will lose the game.
He wasn't attacking you. He was just walking over the river, man.
I mean, but this is my space. Like, let me turtle up in my own zone. And it just started, and I felt bad for Darnell because it wasn't not only my counterattack of his intruding on my territory that hurt him, then others piled in. Like, they saw blood in the water, and they, like, you can ask Darnell, like, he looked defeated from that moment on after the first round.
Well, yeah, I mean, he started very engaged in it, and as it went through, it was just like a war of attrition. I saw him wearing down until at the end, if those of you don't know, in my opinion, the coolest part of Ankh is at a certain part in the game, the two lowest players combined together. It's called the merge, which is why I can't imagine why so many people like this game at 2 players, because there's no merge at 2 players. But beyond that, he merged with Laney at the end to try to come back and win it, and they did get it. They scored a bunch of points, but I think it was maybe Rob. It was Rob, right, at the last minute.
It was my turn. All I needed was my turn. I had my plan. I knew what I was going to score. I was going to reach, and I was going to ring that bell. I was going to slam that sledgehammer, shoot up that lead, and ring that bell like a circus. But Rob came in, and I didn't even see it coming. Just snuck in there and was able to hit that last space and call the victory. And I'm like, wait, I get one more round, right? You're like, no, it immediately ends. And I'm like, no.
And I remember we talked about it afterwards, and you were like, maybe it's the theme that I don't like. I feel like it's disrespectful to Egyptian people. And we were like, you play Blood Rage, right? You know, those were real gods too, to some people.
It was a good conversation. I think we had a good, deep conversation. Laney was in there with me in that conversation too. We were talking about, like, I felt like it was kind of weird playing with these gods, right? Like, these people actually believed in these gods, and these gods were, they thought they roamed the earth, and like we're over here just using them like toys. And then y'all reminded me, if you played Santorini, because those are all gods that people believed in, and I'm like, and it just like it suddenly hit me like it never computed that way when it came to Greek gods, Roman gods, right? Like Percy Jackson type stuff. Like, none of that bothered me, but it was it maybe because I'm not aware of these Egyptian gods. I've never studied them. I don't know anything about them. Like, I felt like, ooh, it's kind of weird using these. And then at the end of after that conversation, I was like, you know what? It's a game.
But you brought up a good point. I think it was you that said, like, how would you guys feel if this was Jesus that was moving around? Right? Was that you? Yeah,
right.
I mean,
like
that is a good point,
So it's a weird, but I guess because it's so ancient and it's not an actively followed thing, right? That makes it okay. I don't know. So, and it's not it's in the theme. I guess that those gods they're so weird looking. They got these goat-headed
We'll
things.
talk about offending Egyptian people. Now you're bashing on their appearance.
Because they're like, half goat, half man, half crocodile. I mean, he was also giving you that look back, that little, hey, look back, that crocodile miniature. Beautiful pictures.
Yes,
I put them up on the Instagram, folks. If you haven't seen, I took some great photos of that game, of Mitch teaching it, photobombing it. We had a great time playing Ankh.
You've been posting some really nice pictures from SoBo. I do have a beef with the one you posted today, but we'll talk about it when we get to it.
Best table presence game of the con. I will not say anything else about it. So that was my play of Ankh.
The next game I played was Paper Tales from Stronghold. I'm going to be completely honest. I liked this game whenever I played it, but the next day you taught me Radlands, and they shared so many similar mechanics, and Radlands was better, that I can't really differentiate this game from that game because it just wasn't as good and it was similar enough. The box is really cool looking. I think that's what grabbed our eye about it. It was on the play-to-win table. It's like the silhouette of a king, but it's kind of like a mosaic within it. It's mostly a card game where you're playing. You have kind of a grid of cards that you can play, and whoever's in the front is going to be attacking other people, and you're building buildings. And honestly, that's the main extent that I can remember about it, the one thing that I do remember that was different from Radlands is that each of your cards is going to last for 2 rounds. After the first round that you use a card, you put an aging token on it. So it's like many years have passed. So the next time, after you use it the second time, it goes away. So there's like a time limit on it. And certain people had abilities, like if they were aged, they might have had less power. Or maybe like this is like a wizard, and as he gets older, then he gets more power. Yeah. So there were some cool little things that work with that. And then not only do they have this combat strength, if they have the resource on the card, then they contribute that to the village and you can build better buildings. So some cool mechanics, but we'll eventually talk about Radlands, and I feel like Radlands did it better. So that's kind of all I have to say about Paper Tales, because all the good stuff we'll mention with Radlands.
Yeah, Paper Tales published by Catch Up Games, designed by Masato.
Is it not Stronghold? In this picture,
No. So the American one is Stronghold. So Stronghold Games for us, distributed by Stronghold in our copy. And then I played. We played Viticulture, the only edition that matters.
No.
The essential edition.
I complained that whole stream. I had not played without the Tuscany expansion literally since the first time I played it. So I was messing up on stuff. It's the inferior version. I'm sure the viewers on iHeartBoardGames got tired of me saying it, but Tuscany is the way to go. We could talk about this for hours on this podcast here, Carlos, so we may not even want to open that can of beans.
And we're not. What we're going to do is we're going to say go to iHeartBoardGames on Twitch, and on that Saturday stream from SoBo, which I think was the 19th of March, right around then.
Yeah.
About 5 hours into that stream, you get to see us play Viticulture all the way through, the 4 of us. Myself, Rob, Dan, and Mitchell. And then I ended the night off by starting the first half of Ark Nova by Capstone Games. I think Jeremy owns a copy of it. Promptly loaded the thing with plastic. All kinds of plastic printed containers, and
that man is a 3D printed machine just as much as you are now a Glowforge machine.
Yeah, it's been nuts with what he's been doing with his 3D printing on that game. But he didn't even play. Jeremy didn't even play, and Jeremy stuck with us, I think, all 5 hours of that game to be there to answer questions, to help us get through it. Like, that's how much of a fan of Ark Nova he is, that he was willing just to give up all his time to teach us the game. So Jeremy, if you're listening, thank you for helping us learn Ark Nova, getting our 2-day play going, because we had to intermission it. I think it was about 11:30 at night. We're about to get kicked out of the hall that evening, and so we had to go and head back to the hotel that evening. Did you get any other games in? I think you were playing Sonar while we were doing Ark Nova. Am I right?
Yeah, I think I played 3 other games while you were playing Ark Nova. One of them was Dinosaur Island Ruin, right? Like, which we kind of talked about before. It's the streamed down version of Dinosaur Island. You're drawing a park, you're running through it, you're getting excitement. So I won't get too much into that. Played Captain Sonar, which again we've talked about a lot before. It had a full 8-player game. It was a lot of fun. Marshall was in that game. BJ and Jay were in that game. It was a lot of fun. So my team, those of you who don't know, it's like live action Battleship kind of real time. My team, we had them pinned down at the very beginning. We got a direct hit, I believe, but then we just could not find them, man. What they ended up doing, BJ was talking about this on his stream on Board Game Gummo the other night. They got 2 hits back on us, but then we kept missing each other. So what happened was Marshall was our captain. He kept going in and out of between 2 sectors. So whenever they would sonar us, they would think we're here, but we're just 1 square over. But they didn't know that. So what Sagan did was he said, you know what? We're not going to do anything. We're going to stay here so they can't find us. We're going to listen to what they're doing, and we're going to zero in on them. And we didn't know that's what he was doing, but that's what they did. They just went silent for a couple minutes. And then all of a sudden, stop, missile here, and they killed us. BJ said he felt like he was in a movie. It was a great moment, at least for them. I was a little salty that we lost.
I see the pun on the submarine, the saltiness. How many players were new to the game?
About half, I think.
So they really got to experience it for the first time. Like, I really do feel like that is an experience game.
Whenever I told it to Jay, he was like, I'll play, but I don't know about this, man. And then as I started explaining the rules, he was like, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. And then we were playing the game, and he's like freaking out. And he's like, oh my God. I think Jay really liked it.
This is the kind of game that I think would be worth setting up a whole set for in a con. I'm talking about, I don't know if you ever did haunted houses. Like we used to make haunted houses here in Tampa. every Halloween at our roller rink. We had like rolls and rolls of visqueen, that dark plastic, and we'd make these dark rooms. Like I could envision, putting up some PVC and creating like a very tight enclosed dark space, and everybody's got little LED lights, little red lights. It's all you can see by, right? You're inside of a submarine. Like we can really just LARP this thing out, and it would just bring
cool.
up the tension even higher.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
well, I was playing Sonar, and you were talking about playing Ark Nova. Do you want to get into that gameplay at all, and your opinion on that?
Well, I figured we got to go to the next day, because for me, Ark Nova was a 2-day event.
Okay, well, I do have one other game I played that night that I do want to talk about for a minute, and that's Canvas, one I'd been looking at. It's using the card crafting system from Mystic Vale, where you're sleeving in these translucent cards. The concept is really cool. You're making art. I like the game, and I don't like the game. First of all, it's very quick, probably 15 minutes, even at 4 players, maybe 20 minutes, so it's a nice filler. What you're trying to do is there are these global goals. Like one of them is have one of each of these symbols. One of them is like have one of every color, or things like that. But the symbols on the bottom of the cards don't really have anything to do with the painting up at the top. So you're not even really focusing on the painting. You're focusing on the symbols on the bottom of the card, which kind of takes some of the enjoyment out of it. There is a variant, or maybe it's a variant in the expansion, where at the end of the game, everybody votes on who has the best painting, and you can get a couple points. So that could kind of affect the game. But
I played it.
It's like, oh, you did? I didn't realize you had played. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Nick Oben taught me at your turn.
Okay, what do you think of it?
It was pretty. I can't say that it was memorable. I can see, it really was all about set collection and just kind of matching different colors up to, and I guess the clear card thing to some folks is this new fangled thing, right? But if you've been in the game, playing games as long as I have, you'll remember things like Ziggity. I don't know if you ever heard of Ziggity by Cranium.
I never heard of that.
It's one of the first clear card games ever. It's a sex collection game. Their cards are clear.
What collection game?
Set collection.
That is not what you said.
And then it's by Cranium. I don't know if you remember the old games by Cranium.
Yeah.
Right. It's called Ziggity. Ziggty. That's like the first clear card game I played. Gloom, right? That's another clear card game. So I'm not. These are things that I've seen before, and it just kind of felt like, okay, this was a pretty game, but to a lot of folks, it's that newness of, ooh, look at these clear cards that I overlay and they do something. It was okay. Yeah. It was pretty.
Yeah, it's got novelty to it, right? Now, what is fun, whenever you complete a painting, there are words on each of the ones, and it creates a title. I always like announcing the title. Sometimes it's funny, and then you see what that is. There's some novelty there. I like that the box doesn't have text on it, so you can hang it up like an actual portrait. It looks like a canvas. I'm not a big fan of puzzle games.
I think the back of the box has like a hole specifically for hanging up, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, like the little triangle thing.
Right, like they punched out a triangle in the back of the box so you can literally hang the whole game on the wall.
Right. So, it's a very light, fast game, but if you wanted to, you could take a long time and really try to game the system, figure out the pattern and the puzzle you got to figure out. But it's just, in my opinion, there's not enough game to it to devote that much time to it. So it kind of just came down to, oh, yeah, I guess I'll do this. And I feel like a lot of people were the same in the game. So, maybe for a lighter game or a filler game, sure, but it's not something I'm going to be playing all the time.
No, it's not. It's definitely not something that I'm going to be seeking out to play. And I'll say that because it's been maybe more than a year, and I've never sought out to play it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was my first play of it because my buddy Doug had got just literally, I think that day maybe, gotten in the reprint with the expansion. And we didn't play the expansion at the con, but the expansion basically is reflection, so you could flip the card over, which just made it even more puzzly, and I was not a fan of. But yeah.
Yeah, and if you play with some puzzly AP people, it just ruined the experience. And all I got to say is I played with Nick Oben. He taught us. If you're a friend of the show and you know Nick Oben, he can AP it a little bit, which kind of takes away from the experience, the fast, fun experience. And then we finished off the night, I think, with Taco Bell, right? Like we ended up with Taco Bell.
Oh my God, that's not a game. A walking taco.
Oh, we had Taco Bell that night, went to bed, got up early again because we had committed to be back at, I think, like 8 o'clock that morning to continue our game of Ark Nova because...
I've learned something. I need to trap you like that in the future because otherwise I don't think you would have been there for hours if you weren't committed to that time.
I am an experienced person. The gaming to me is secondary. The games and the gaming to me is secondary to the experiences, right? If it takes me 2 hours to figure out breakfast and eat with family, I'll do that, even if it makes me 2 hours late to the gaming hall because it's all about the experiences.
I get that. I love my family, but I can eat breakfast with them at home. There's food at home. Give me the games.
There are
shove a
games at
burrito
home
down my
too.
mouth.
Plenty of games at home. But I did commit to being there early, so I
Fair
got
enough.
there on time. We had our coffees ready to go, and we started with Ark Nova Part 2, the intermission. Right? I think we were a little bit over halfway when we finished that one, so we got through the last few rounds. I will say, Ark Nova, I ended up in second place with 16 points. Connor ended up winning with 20 points. Rob was at 8 and Dan at 7. So I say that just to say, go ahead.
Isn't that depressing that you played a game for 5 hours and had 16 points? That just doesn't sound impressive.
Number one, that's the feeling I walked away with. I was like, wow, the point spread is
For
real.
every hour, I got 3 points.
We got a lot more than that because it's kind of like this cross
It's a
Venn
delta.
diagram of a Zen of a delta or whatever. I don't know these numbers and names. But I got my score, and I thought I did really good. Like I really thought I was going to win that thing. But Connor has played before, and he got me. He got me with his 20. I don't know if I'll seek this game out again. I don't know. I know you felt that way after playing it.
Yeah, I didn't play it at the con. I played it maybe a week before, and I'm not a big fan of it. My philosophy is I don't mind long games if I can't get that experience somewhere else. But in that game, it just felt kind of okay to me, and I could have played several other games that are more than okay in that time period. If the game were half the length, I think it'd be an okay game. If that game were maybe split into 2 games mechanically, it might be an okay game. I just felt like I spent, the first little bit of the game getting my engine running, and then I just ran my engine over and over and over and over again trying to push the end game. And it's like I didn't need that long to run my engine. I had it set up 2 hours ago. Was it like that for your
Mine
engine
was
as
the
well? Or were
opposite
you
feeling. I was more of, I felt like it took forever to get my engine going, and by the time I got it going, the game was over. So I didn't get to enjoy watching the fruits of my engine. I think what I really didn't like about it was how tight the card play was. In Terraforming Mars, which is what people tend to go to as a comparison, and I won't say that this is a comparison to Terraforming Mars. You won't see.
No.
I won't be one of those people. But I will say that I will compare it in that the hand size in Terraforming Mars is something I love. Huge display of cards, kind of figuring out, I stack them in order of when I want to play them, early, late, mid-game, late game, right? I organize my cards that way, whereas in Ark Nova, you get like 3 cards. Like that's your hand size. Like maybe 5, but then you go back down to 3. And it's like, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mentioned this on the show the other night, but the only similarities I see to Terraforming Mars, there are cards with tags. The tags that reminded me of Mars, and then you got hexes that you're playing on, but it's your own individual board. But for me, whenever I think of Ark Nova, I think of that action selection system with the 5 actions that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you pick it out of 5, it's going to be the strongest, and then it slides to the bottom. And then you have those X symbols where you can increase it. I like that system, but I felt like it was too limiting because I always felt like, if possible, I'm going to do the 5, right? Because you want the most powerful thing.
Right.
But like, what is it called? The association action, you can only do if you have a worker. And you start the game with 1 worker, and you maybe have a couple chances to get another. So if that card's all the way at the top and I don't have the worker for it, I think there's maybe one other option, but it's just like, okay, it's at 5 and I can't really utilize it this round.
And I can't get anything else into that 5 slot to be able to really, like, I need maybe buying animals in the 5 to be able to do the exact thing I wanted to do, but I can't because the association action's up there and I don't have a worker to use. There's frustration, right? With negative play frustrations.
Well, I think there is a way to get it to the 5, but I think you have to like skip a turn to move the card and maybe get a couple dollars or something. And it's such a long game. It's like you want your turns to mean something, and it was just like that wasn't worth it. I don't think I ever did that action, even though I needed it a lot of the time. The cost benefit wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of skipping a turn. I just don't like it. Mm-hmm. So I love that mechanism of the actions equaling the X being the slot it's in 1 through 5. How do we do that in a faster game is what I would say.
And in a game that's less limiting, because, I don't remember the situation for all of them, but I just burped. All of them had a way that, even if it's at 5, maybe you could do it, but you're only doing like a fraction of it. And it's like, okay, well now it's just because it's at 5, it doesn't make it any better, So I think if that could be done, like you said, with a positive player experience, it would be something I'd really be down for in a game.
And the player board is not my favorite part of Terraforming Mars. The area control piece is not what I do well at, and I feel that in Ark Nova, that is a huge part of the game, whereas that's where Connor got a lot of his points. He played that player board. He added the concession stands, right? Me, the only reason I put anything on the board...
I think that's Dinosaur Island Road, right? I don't think there's concession stands.
No, they are. They're
there?
concession stands.
They really are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's what you were doing wrong in your play, too. I didn't put a single concession stand out there. He had a whole string of them, like 3 or 4 on his board. I put a pen if I needed to play an animal. The only time I built a pen. He focused on building a zoo and then filling it as he got cards.
See, whenever I played, there's just so many options, which is not always a bad thing. But the thing I clung on to was that it's like if you fill in your whole zoo, you get a bunch of points. So like that was my goal whenever I played. But then what happened was I had all these pens without any animals in them. So you got to find that balance a little bit more. But so people pitch this as Terraforming Mars with animals. I think a better way to pitch this is it's basically Zoo Tycoon. You ever played that game? I loved that game as a kid. Oh, no. It's fun. But the problem is Zoo Tycoon is like this kind of like lighthearted game, and this is like Zoo Tycoon like on steroids. You know, it's just a little bit too much for me.
And I went to game night recently at Armada. They had a Blood Bowl, but they had their board game night, and somebody was playing New York Zoo, I think is the name of the board game.
I've heard of it, but I've
it
never
looked
played
just like this. Like I walked by and I thought, oh, are they playing Ark Nova? No, they're playing New York Zoo. And I'm like, you know what? Now I have some interest in trying that because I like the zoo theme, but I just don't need it to be that heavy. Maybe a little bit lighter.
I have no problem that some people enjoy this game, but I just don't understand how so many people are already calling it the game of the year. First of all, it's early. But secondly, I just don't get the hype. Are people just saying they like it because everybody else is saying it? I don't know.
Well, Tom Vassell said it. So, I mean,
I know,
we've got to be wrong.
No. That's part of the hype train, I think. You know, it's bandwagoning. Oh, Vassell said it's good, so we must all like it.
Vassell said it's his number one. It shot to his number one out of 100. Like, in the first... And that's the thing is he got to play it because he got an early copy. I had pre-ordered it, and my wave was pushed back to May.
You had pre-ordered it? I didn't know that.
I had pre-ordered it.
Cancel?
I canceled my order. I canceled my order.
After the play?
I will consider now buying it maybe once it goes down like well below retail MSRP. You know, when that price goes down, then it's maybe worth adding to the collection. But I'm not paying the full $75 plus shipping to get that game, knowing that it's not going to be something that draws me every time.
Wow. Now, if it had a, I don't know what it's called, the variant that you play of Clash of Cultures with the shorter game, if it had a shorter game variant, I would maybe play it again. But I just don't see myself ever wanting to commit that much time to a game that's just...
Yeah, it's kind of like Abomination, the board game, right? That's another game that was a great game, beloved, but it just went too long. So the designer created his own shorter version. It's an official shorter version on the website. So
yeah, I mean, if it's official, I consider that canon, you know. So with Ark Nova, okay, you got this long board. I don't know how long it is. It's huge.
It's taller than Rob.
And your two pieces start on the same opposite corners on the same side, and they have to go all the way around and cross. And it's like, why not make that board 50, 75% the length? Why does it need to be that long? I don't know.
And I feel that moving up on the conservation track takes so much effort to just do anything on the conservation track.
Well, to be fair, though, whenever you're moving up on that, you're jumping like 3, right? They're not a 1-to-1 ratio, but you are right. Usually, it's going to be on that other side of the board where they cross over.
Yeah, they're all crossing over on the conservation side of the board because you're getting the peel real easy. Playing animals gets you a peel. You get up the board, you get a peel. You sell some popcorn, you get a peel, right? Conservation is the hardest part of the game. There are many wonderful things about this game, folks. Do not get it twisted. I don't think it's a bad game. I just feel like, I guess the hype train got me. Like, I was supposed to love this game. If you love Terraforming Mars and you love animals, and to me, animals are tasty. I love them. This game is for you.
Is that what you do when you go to a zoo? Is you taste the animals, Carlos?
I eat. Have you not figured this out yet? I eat. Everywhere I go, I eat.
Another thing I didn't like about the game, and I'm sorry, I'm just going more on the negatives, but I know that there's in-game scoring cards, but I feel like you should get some kind of bonus for being the one that triggers the end of the game, because in my play, I triggered the end of the game, and pretty heftily. I was fairly far ahead, and I was playing it was Connor's first play, and he had all these in-game scoring cards. He's like, bam! It's like, if I place the 6-star in Scythe, I want to win. And I feel like usually, if you play the 6-star, you win. But like, I was watching Connor play a game the other night with Jeremy's wife, and I think Connor triggered she triggered the end of the game, and Connor won. And it just, I feel like that's a big deal. But if you're not incentivized to do it, it's just going to make the game last longer.
Right, because no one's going to want to trigger it. They're not 100% sure that they have enough of the endgame scoring cards. And that's the part that bothered me, too, because when it comes to the endgame scoring cards, that all comes from random draws. Right, so you spend all this time, all this energy. I'm fine with random, folks. Random don't bother me. I play Blood Bowl, okay? Don't talk to me about random. I know random. But when it comes to 4 hours of game to then find out you won because you drew some cards towards the end of the game that really synergized with what you already built, it's like, why were we even here?
Now, okay, I will defend it in this situation. So I don't remember the exact mechanics, but the draw cards action, if it's in 5, isn't it like draw X number, discard X number, something like that? So you do have ways that you can filter that if you're willing to use your 5 slot on those cards. That's not to discount everything you're saying, but the game does have at least something to account for that a little bit. But you're right. Even if you are using that, you could get a card that nobody else got just because of how it was shuffled. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. Is I was able to actually pick up and put into my hand conservation scoring cards that matched the system I was already building, the reptile system I was already building. I'm okay with that in an hour-long game, even a 2-hour-long game. But when we have 4 hours, it's like, and I don't see that in Terraforming Mars. I don't see a random play winning it for someone in Terraforming Mars. You had to, from get-go one, build a system that earned you points throughout the game and establish presence on the board to win.
Yeah, I could throw Deimos down and mess up your next turn, but it's not going to.
I'm not gonna beat you with Deimos down. I only do it because I like to mess with you.
That's the one that's like 42 MC, right?
Yeah,
like,
it costs me a lot.
Yeah,
but I do it to Robert every time because it feels good. That's Arc Nova.
Well, after you finished Arc Nova, I had to go. I went and taught a game of Lost Ruins of Arnak. I didn't actually play it, but it was my next guided playthrough, and we've talked about that game enough on the podcast. But then I came back. You guys were finishing up your second game of Tiny Epic Dungeons, and you wanted to teach me Radlands. I really like this game to the point where I want to buy it, and the only reason I haven't bought it yet is because the version with the playmat is out of stock, and I haven't seen your completed version of your Glowforge components made yet. I will buy it once I see that, because I feel like it needs a playmat or something, you know. But you picked it up because it was like $17 on Game Nerd, something like that. Just the cards.
Yeah, just Miniature Market. It was like $17.99, and it's just the linen finish cards. You don't get the plastic cards. Comes in a small box. Just cardboard tokens. It's effectively the whole game, just no bling, no mats, no Bakelite counters or tokens, no plastic cards because the cards now are plastic. You don't need to sleeve them when you buy the deluxe or the super deluxe, I think it's called. But it's like $17. You know, to me, it was totally worth purchasing it to see is it even something I want to play before I commit to something that huge of a commitment.
And for me, the punched cardboard counters weren't a big deal, that they weren't the Bakelite or whatever. But the playmat I do feel is necessary because you basically have 3 like lanes that you're kind of fighting in. You have these bases that you're trying to defend, and the goal is for the other person to destroy your bases. But you can have soldiers that you play in front of those bases to defend them. And you have water. This is like a post-apocalyptic future kind of situation. And you have water that's your resource. And just the theme was really cool. The cards have like this purple tint, like you can imagine. Everything's radioactive. And you're just trying to destroy each other's base. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was a great teach by you. I think it was your first time playing as well. But yeah, we got it down pretty easily.
Yeah, you got to experience firing the cannons over and over again at me. The symbology was easy to recognize once you started to see the same symbols over and over again. I love the duality of the cards because the cards can either be played, not even duality, tripality. Let's use those words. Cards can be played face down as a punk, so it's like a 1 health little meat shield that does nothing, or you can play them as a person for their special abilities. They have 2 health, or you can play them for their top right bonus in the top of the card, which is a symbol. So it could be water, it could be another card, it could be restoring someone's health, all these different actions that you get. So you have to make all these decisions on how to use the cards, which feels great. And then the artwork is amazing. The gameplay is fast, it's frenetic, and it's tight because of that resource, that water resource, or as they say in Mad Max, the hydro. The hydro.
You get 3 around unless you have some kind of card that gives you extra. And that's pretty much limits your options. I mean, I think there were a couple cards that didn't cost any water, but most of them cost 1 or 2. So sometimes you're only doing 1 or 2 actions. But sometimes it's really dire because, for example, if on your turn, if you killed my guy that was defending my base is now open. If you attack, that attack is going straight, destroying that base. And once your base is gone, it's no getting it back.
And your camp has 2 healths, just like everything else. 2 hits and it's dead. So you really got to cover up those lanes.
So yeah, whichever happens first, either you finish your Glowforge player mat, whatever you're planning on doing.
I feel it's finished, but for me,
maybe I didn't see it.
It's enough.
I saw
for me.
I saw the tokens you were making. Where's a picture of the player mat?
It's in there.
Did you post a
Behind it,
picture?
you can see the etching of it. So, and actually, I got it right here.
Let me see. I know the people at home, this is going to be boring because it's visual. Maybe I just missed it.
If you folks at home want to see it, just hit the Instagram. I got pictures of it up there. So I was able to create on the mat. I have the bombs there for the events. So 3, 2, and 1. Your countdown of your events. Then you got your slots for your tokens, right? So you got all your different actions you can spend your water tokens on to either discard water. You have your water. You can spend 2 waters to draw a card, or you spend 1 water to get your water silo, right? And then from there, it's all the lanes. So from there, you get to see all the lanes that I put in, all 3 lanes with enough room to tap them, and then your spots for your base camps. So it's just the basics of it, and I etched it on my laser cutter on felt. So it's like a thick felt. Maybe I'll if you do end up getting it, and that's the tough part because you're trying to make that decision. Do you pay the $17 or do you go to the is it 60 and then 75? I can't remember the leaps.
I don't know, fan.
Those leaps are high.
We'll talk about it off air, but yeah, I think I'm going to commission you there because I'm ready for the game, and that looks pretty nice.
It's playable. It's playable.
Gonna enhance the gameplay a lot.
And then I also printed out 1.5 inch acrylic tokens, double-sided, so it etched out a water droplet and etched out the X, and I painted it, filled it in with paint. So they're black and white. They look great. They feel great. They play great, and all of that for $17.99 for the game. And then, a few $1,000s for a laser cutter. And you can have your own deluxe copy of Radlands.
I bet you guys didn't know you were tuning into a commercial for Carlito's Etsy shop launching soon.
We have launching one day. Right now, I'm just having so much fun just pimping out my games. Like, to me, it's all about fun right now. And these mats, I can make another set super simple, easy, send them out to you. I think I want to try something different. I want to paint them a little bit and then etch them so that the black lines come through. But we'll see. I have my airbrush for that.
Yeah. We'll talk about it.
That was Radlands. We both recommend it.
Yeah, what was the next thing you played? I know right after Radlands was whenever we went, grabbed some food at the festival. We came back, and I think that's whenever we both went into Hurricane, right?
We went and played, I think, where was I? I know we played some Rush? Ripple Rush by Stronghold Games, another flip and fill game.
Yeah, that was a very light, quick flip and fill. I played it that night with you guys at Chili's. That was a good one. You're just it's kind of like Welcome To, but without any theme at all. It's just
and
colors
simple
and numbers
and
you're trying to put in order.
Very small footprint. Very small footprint. I think was the best part about that. I had ordered it on Amazon and then surprisingly ended up winning it Sunday night in the play to win. So I had 2 copies. I traded one with Dan for a copy of something else he had. But Ripple Rush, I'd recommend it. I also we finished off our game of Liar's Dice. I got to play some Spotlight with Jay Bell. So Jay Bell introduced me to Spotlight.
Talk about Spotlight for a minute before we get to Hurricane.
Well, holy crap. Oh, that's right. Hurricane was on Sunday, was it? It was Sunday. Spotlight is a 1-deck game. I think it's like a 52-card deck game.
I think so, yeah.
But it is one of the deepest games I've played out of a small box game like that I can think of.
And whenever he was explaining the rules to you, you were like glass-eyed, like you were like, "What?" And
I can't even I can play the game again if I had to. Like I definitely could play it again. I just don't know how to explain it. And the reason I struggle explaining the game is not because it's hard to play. Like the rules are simple, but everything you do impacts your strategy of the game. So it's like I can't even grok the strategy because there's so much interplay between you and your opponent, trying to get them to think that what you're playing. So the feels of the game. Let me go with that. What are the things that playing
first of all,
this
is designed by a friend of mine, Jay Bell, co-designed through Jack of Peace Games, called Spotlight. You can get it. It is out there in the interwebs.
I got my copy at SoBo, and Jay Bell signed it for me and taught me the game, so that was awesome.
You guys had 2 games going on. You and Rob were playing, and then he was playing Dan, and he said Dan would not talk. Dan was just in the game, and Dan beat the designer at his own game.
Well, that was awesome. That's that interplay between players. That's that poker face he threw on. Like he was all like, dark tinted sunglasses, ball cap, brim low, don't show my poker face game, which is a big part of this game. It feels a little bit like Land, Air, and Sea or Battle Line. If you ever played any of those, they have a center objective in between you. and you're playing cards to each objective in order to try to gain power to the objective. So it kind of had that feeling. It had almost a smash-up feel to it as well, because each of the objectives on the board that you're playing cards to using the power of the cards, so the number, the rank, I think anywhere between 1 and like 8 is the ranking of the cards. But whatever power you're putting down on is the amount of control that suit had on that objective. And kind of like Smash Up, each objective had a different criteria for winning that objective, or it modified the cards played to that objective. So it might say that anything higher than a 4 is only going to be equal to a 3, right? So like weird stuff that it did to change the game. But the toughest part was like a trick-taking game, you're going to get all your cards in one hand up front. So you get everything in your hand. You get to see everything you have. You can see all the suits you have and all of their power. And then you got to figure out and secretly select one of those cards to represent your suit that you're playing for that round. Your opponent does the same, and then each of you discards a card. So now you kind of remove some cards from the game, so it's not perfect knowledge on what are in our hands. And then we start playing towards these objectives face up and sometimes face down, depending on the objective. So, all right, I'm going to play this gray suit here with a power of 2. And then Rob comes in and adds a gray on top of that to that same location of a power of like 4, making it 6 now, 6 gray for that location, which makes me think, well, maybe Rob picked gray to be his suit of choice this round. So now I know what he's going to play and go after, but then maybe he's doing that to make me think he is so that he can go put his purples somewhere else because that's what he's going to use. It mind messed me up.
It's a mind game. It's the psychology in there. And then I think what even messed me up further is like some of the objectives, it's not just you want majority. I think I remember there's somewhere it's like you want the lowest number. But the thing is you got to play, you have to play your suit there because if the suit's not there at all, then the lowest number will be whatever, some other one. But then you can't play it too much there because then you won't win it. But then it's really obvious. If you play a 1 there, okay, I guess that's my spotlight card. It's like Jedi mind trick to the other person. It is a brain-burning game for in theory, simple mechanic card game.
One deck, like the size of a bicycle playing card deck, had so many layers, like an onion.
What I like about it, it feels like more than a card game because you have those objectives, those different areas, and you set them out and you're playing. It's like area control, but with cards.
It is.
Yeah, so
But it's area control with 4 different suits, but there's only one of those that matters to you. Right. And then you got to suss out what suit did my opponent pick, and you're thinking it's not the same suit you picked because you picked the suit that you knew you had the most power in because you knew you can control more. But then maybe your opponent didn't pick the one that he had the most power in because he would know that you knew he had more of those cards. You see where
it's like the Princess Bride, the Poison Cup situation.
And it just kept going in my head. So Rob and I, we just agreed, let's just play it out. So it's mad props to the design work on this game to get so much out of so little.
Yep. Check it out. Spotlight, J-Bell, Jack-A-Piece Games. So yeah, after that, that's whenever we went and play tested Hurricane. A guy named Woody was a designer. He publishes his games under, it's called Hutchu, Hutchu games. So yeah, I mean, Carlos and I are both from the South, and it was a game about hurricanes. It's really cool. He had these little 3D printed stands and then like these plastic circles to represent the hurricanes, and you basically play the game throughout the hurricane season. Once there are 4 hurricanes that come in and fizzle out, and if they finish on water, they may grow. And what you're trying to do is you're playing the people preparing for the hurricanes that are coming. And so each round, you're going to, based on where they are on the map, you're going to flip a card and it's going to say which direction they go and if they grow and things like that. And so that's an 8-hour prediction. It's like the meteorologist. And so you want to hurry up and try to get shelters there because if it hits that shelter, then that area you get to save people. It's kind of weird. It's like, I hope this hurricane hits my hometown because I have a shelter there. It's like this weird sick kind of thing. But it was a lot of fun. Mechanically, I thought there were some really cool things. We gave him some input on some of the components where, the hurricane may be dropping wind damage and things like that, and it got a little fiddly. Carlos had a really good idea of having these kind of staging areas where all those components would go. So component-wise, there's still a little bit of work to be done, in my opinion, but I thought the core mechanics were pretty cool, and I enjoyed it, especially because I see my hometown. I see my
we're from the Gulf. This is something we deal with every year.
I see my local power company. It was pretty cool, and I know, Carlos, for you being an insurance guy, it was kind of close to home as well.
My life is property claims. I spent a lot of time doing catastrophe work for property claims. So all those same feelings that I would get at work watching those models and trying to figure out, all right, where are we preparing for the landfall? Where are we going to figure out, what policies are going to be impacted? Where do we send our teams? All those conversations that we have at work were the same around the table that we were having there. So, and I know some people think, oh, it's like work, but when that part of work is the part that really it makes me feel good about what I do, right? Helping people get through catastrophes and stuff. And that game really helped me simulate some of those same good feelings. So Woody did a great job with the game. He had, when you talked about the disc representing the hurricanes, folks, they felt like little tiny CDs on pegs. And then as the storm got bigger, the disc got bigger. So you can see these like clear discs getting bigger and bigger, and you can kind of picture the storm getting bigger and wider. He did a good job. There's some fiddliness he's got to get through, but the bones of this game are there.
And the first thing I thought of whenever I saw the board, I'm like, man, it's like I'm tracking a hurricane on a map, with the coordinates and stuff. And I was worried with all the different places you could potentially be putting shelters, it would get confusing. But he did a really good job he had a mini map on every single card with the number of where it was. It was very easy to see where to drop those shelters, or you could also be dropping like search and rescue boats or utility trucks. It was just very thematic, and I liked it. I don't remember the exact date, but he said it would be on Kickstarter later this year. I signed up for his newsletter to check it out. I'm really interested to see what changes he makes before launching it online.
Yeah, it's really just figuring out how to manage the tokens so that the amount of tokens don't get out of control. I think that was as we started taking wind damage, because we had some storms overlapping, and the amount of wind damage overlapping in the area got a little confusing. But that's easily figured out, the user interface piece. The idea and the theme is there, and the fun of the play was there, and it wasn't terribly long. I liked how he handled because it was almost like a Terraforming Mars style deck of cards, like a really big deck of cards. And one of the things that I wish Terraforming Mars would do that he did here is he separated it by stages. So depending on what stage of the game we're in, he added more cards to the deck. Right, so you got access to those end game cards. So in Terraforming Mars, you might get a whole hand of end game cards at the beginning of the game. You just got to burn them out and cycle them out for other cards. Whereas here, the cards that we started with were everything we can use at the beginning of the game. So that's just good, positive experience.
One cool mechanic with the deck that added a lot of good player interaction was, so you had kind of like levels, I guess, as a disaster planner, you could level up. And so as soon as one person leveled up, those level 2 cards would go in. So it's encouraging Carlos. I think it was Doug, my friend Doug, that leveled up first. And Carlos is over there still on level 1. So Carlos may now be drawing cards that he cannot use.
Doug was at a 3. I'm drawing level 2 and level 3 cards that I can't even use.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And then another thing is, so a big part of it, and it's the same in real life, I'm sure, we're creating shelters that sometimes the hurricanes pass up, which in real life, I guess that's a good thing, but in the game, it's the bad thing because you get points for saving those people. But at the end of the game, all the shelters you built, you have this tableau, and you're going to get points for them regardless. It's just more points if they were useful. So that was a little bit of a positive player experience. All my shelters that I had built, they still counted for something. I tried to help these people,
No, it was a great idea, great game, right in our theme, right in our wheelhouse. So, and that was that beautiful area I had set up in the foyer for the unpub games, the unpublished games. So I'm glad that you pointed that one out and we jumped in. Dan hung out with us. Rob played. I played, you played, and then Dan just watched. He enjoyed it so much, he just watched.
Yep, that's a sign of a good game if the bystanders are enjoying as well.
And then speaking of, being on the Atlantic shore, let's talk about Cape May.
What a segue.
That's stomping grounds for Hurricane Sandy.
Man, this is the game that I said I had some issue with the pictures you posted earlier. So I love the pictures you've been posting from SoBo. Some great high-quality shots. You guys need to check them out. And, you were talking about how much table presence it had. But, guys, I'm sorry if the publisher of this game is listening. Carlos complained about this game the whole way through.
It was turn 0. Like turn 0, I was already. Yeah, I had some issues with the game.
So let me just start off with this. I had played this game one time a few months ago. Rob mentioned wanting to play it, so I busted it out, and I was skimming the rules, and I didn't do a great job teaching it because I didn't know the game super well, but that was, I warned them ahead of time about that. But even as I was teaching it and messing up a couple of things, Carlos was like, what is this? Is this a rolling move? Is this just Monopoly?
I did say that.
And so I agree. This is a light game. It's not one I'm going to go for all the time, but I think it's got some decent components to it. So, Carlos, tell us what you don't like or why you don't like it.
I'll tell you what I like first. The game is gorgeous. The artwork is amazing. The building miniature pieces are beautiful. The coins look real. That's how beautiful they did with the tokens and the quality of the components. The linen finish on the cards. I mean, the production value of this game is awesome. The struggles I guess I had with the game were right off the bat, we drew an event. And the event required us to draw from the bird bag, which I feel like was an added-on mechanism in this bag where you draw birds and you hope to get non-matching birds to give you bonus points, which is part of how Dan ended up winning the game because he had a sack of birds. Okay.
So you're starting with the positives, right?
Yeah, I did, didn't I? It led me right to the negatives. And that was it, is right off the bat, I had to make a decision, draw from this bird bag and decide which ones I wanted to keep. And it's like, I'm being asked to make a decision on something that I don't even know how it will impact me at the end of the game because I felt like gameplay you right there. And then it became this moving around the board based on the cards you play. So you play a card and you use that number to move around the board. So it's kind of like a track. It felt very Candyland-ish. And I hate to, I know it's disparaging.
Okay, hold on. Candyland, you're randomly flipping a card in the movie. You are picking. You have some agency. You're picking which number you're playing.
I said felt like.
Okay. Continue.
Because, similarities are there. I flip a card and then I move a number of spaces down a sidewalk path, right, to it felt rollin' move-ish, flippin' move-ish.
But then once you get there, you build building.
Yes, and that's where I still had problems with this game. So we're here. The game is set on Cape May in New Jersey, on the Cape, and you've got this beautiful boardwalk, right, where you want to have the prime real estate. You want to build the best estates on this boardwalk. You want to build buildings on this boardwalk because everybody wants to go there. But the guy who wins is the guy who stayed well off the shoreline.
That's not
as
true.
Deep as he could, bought the lowest value properties he could, kind of like the slumlord.
Not true.
Dan.
Not true. I am looking at a picture right now of in-game scoring. Okay, so there are 4 different areas as you get closer to the beach. There's cement, grass, dirt, and then sand. It's going to cost you more money to build, of course, closer to the beach. At the in-game, certain kinds of buildings are going to give you points for each one that you own. And on that part of the in-game, the ones at the beach can be more expensive. Of course, the condos on the beach are going to give you more value than the ones up the neighborhood, right? But for having the majority of buildings, you get more money farther away from the beach. So think about that. The big hotels that can be really big because it's cheaper up there probably make more money than the people that at the beach that just have, a couple little condos here and there. I think that makes sense thematically.
I don't know. I just feel like the prime real estate, the goal of the game is to build on the beach, and I did that, and I did that better than anyone else. And I feel like the points just did not pan out. It would have been better to stay offshore and buy a bunch of little shabby businesses.
There are 2 kinds of buildings, though. So there's commercial and residential. Commercial buildings give you income to use throughout the game to build more buildings, whereas, don't quote me on this, but I think it's the residential ones that give you the in-game bonus points. So maybe you were just making money and not getting victory points. I don't know. Is that where you building commercial instead of residential?
All I know is Rob played what he does best, middle of the road, somewhere in between the sand and the gravel, and ended up winning the game. I think ended up being Rob, with Dan in a very close second place. I think 67 Rob, 65 Dan. You and I, we were the ones closest to the shore, and we weren't even close to them. I think I was at 54, right? Dan was at 65, and you were at 52. And we're the ones that spent most energy getting close to the shore.
You're right.
Look at the cover of the box. I'm looking at it on BGG right now. It's the beach. It just don't make no sense. It don't make no sense.
I don't know why I'm fighting so hard for this game. I don't really have that strong of an opinion. It's just you were so frustrated that I felt that had to be brought up.
And I guess because I really wanted to like it. It was such a beautiful game.
Yeah, well.
But and Dan had a point. Dan is a owner of, I don't know how many times I've said it today, owner of Your Turn, a board game cafe in Zephyr Hills, Florida. He said this is a buy for him right off the bat. This is the kind of game he can set up for his patrons that come into the shop. These are not like heavy gamers. These are people who probably going to head to the Monopoly shelf first, right? Or Yahtzee or Uno.
I don't think I could do what he does.
But he could teach this game because of its beautiful presence, get them in, get them rolling, because, you just teach them that it has kind of like a Candyland mechanism. You're going to play a card and move that many spaces and see what you get.
I'm done talking about this game. You're getting me kind of frustrated.
Hey, Thunderworks, we appreciate the production value that you put into that game. I just was really hoping for a deeper game.
You're lauding the production value, but I'm pretty sure the first thing you said whenever we opened the box was overproduced.
That was just me being facetious. That's like an inside joke. I still don't know why Jamie Stegmaier even designed the mechanisms of the game for that.
Nobody's gonna get that. They're gonna think you're very ill-informed. So I think also as soon as we opened the box, the second thing you said was, "Oh, this is just Foundations of Rome."
Yes, because it felt like it felt like they're capitalizing on the same feeling. Ooh, big chunks of plastic. Buy me.
It came out before Foundations of Rome.
And I think what's really cool about this game, when sort of giving mad props, it wasn't a Kickstarter.
It was just straight to retail?
Right. My understanding is this wasn't a Kickstarter. So it's like, I don't want to hate them as much as I do because I give you mad props. Like, you took a risk. You built a game. You put it out. Now, it's probably being sold on every shop in Cape May. Every little
I'm sure.
knick-knack shop up there somewhere. I do got
That's probably 90% of their revenue.
I'm logging it. Here's my review on the BGG at a 6.
Okay, I think you said you were going to give it a 2 whenever we were playing it, so that's a little bit better.
I'm glad I had a few daiquiris between here and then. I feel a little bit better. Going back, looking through those photos that I posted, I was like, God, it's such a beautiful game. Such a beautiful game.
Yeah. Well, the last game I played at the con, and it was a game I'd already played, but it was a play to win, and Rob and Dan hadn't played it, was Azul Stained Glass. Have you played that version yet?
I have not, but I have a copy on my shelf.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what you traded with Dan for Ripple Rush. So I like this game better. Carlos is dying over there. I really thought that there was some Ripple. I don't know. I got confused by the name of that game several times at the con.
That was
we were
fun.
playing it at Chili's. Anyway, I like this game better than the regular Azul. You still have your little square token things, but you're trying to create this these stained glass windows. And the way that it works is just like regular Azul, you have to take everything of one color in a certain pile. If you cannot fit it in the pane that you're working on, though, it breaks, and you exponentially lose points for broken glass. And you have this little meeple that you can advance him forward to work on a future window, but you can only work on one window at a time. But the cool thing is, as an action, instead of taking glass pieces, you can move your meeple back to the first window. So if there's no good options, and like all of them are going to make you break glass, well, then you could just move your worker back, and it's almost like a pass, and then it passes it off to the next person. And so whenever you complete a window, you're basically trying to make this like circle. It's kind of hard to explain. Whenever you complete a window, you drop one of the glass panes down at the bottom, and there's like this circle. So you want to complete windows that are next to each other, but also every round there's randomly one color that you get extra points for every one of that color that you complete. It's simple. I like it better than the original Azul. There are different patterns in all the windows. They're just randomized, and it's really pretty to look at. I'm looking right here on Facebook. Carlos said also known as Azul, the Jolly Rancher edition.
That's what I see when I see this game. Like, Azul is the Starburst edition. This is the Jolly Rancher version. Because those stained glass cubes or squares, tiles, they're so clear, translucent, colorful, beautiful, tasty looking. The game looks gorgeous. It does. And I love the idea. This is the first description I've had from anyone on how this game plays, and you did a good job on it because you got me interested in that the mechanisms aren't going to be hard to pick up. Like, if you play Azul, you can play stained glass, right? But then I also liked where you added the ability to change your meeple worker location back to the 1 as a pass, right? Because one of the tough parts of Azul is, like, the way Robert plays it, is he wants you to take a pile of a color and watch them fall to the floor, right? And that's just that negative play experience. But this gives you, like, that one pass out. Let me ask, once my meeple worker's back to 1, can I pass again? Or do on my next turn I have to take?
You have to take the next one.
All right, so you get, like, one mulligan and be like, all right, let's see if we go back around, maybe a better opportunity presents itself for grabbing something.
Yeah, you just have to hope that the other people are not on one. You have to hope the other people are on one, because if you pass, they could just pass right after you.
Yeah.
But that could also be a negative thing, because, like, let's say there's exactly what I need for my first window, but my meeple's at 2. I can move forward, but I have to take a turn and move backward. So if I have to move backward, someone else could take what I need. So, it's give and take.
But decisions, and that's what I like, is when you add decision points, it makes the game better.
Yeah, it's a good game. I recommend it. I think Dan ended up winning it in the play to win. You won it in the play to win.
I won Ripple Rush, but I had already ordered my
was.
copy from Amazon, and it was already on its way to my doorstep being delivered.
So you gave it to him. He gave you this. That's right.
He already has a copy of this in his game shop over at Your Turn, a board game cafe in Zephyr Hills, Florida. He already has a copy
Never heard
of
of that.
No, okay. I'll tell you more about it. They don't sponsor the show, but I just love the guy. Great guy. So he said, hey, we'll just trade if you're okay with that, because I was going to cancel the Amazon order and ship it back. I mean, that's a $20 card game for a $40 board game. I'm in for that trade all day, every day.
Yeah.
So I have my copy. All in all, to say...
You also played a game of Potion Explosion, didn't you?
I snuck away from you guys.
You?
You guys had this thing going where you just kept playing all these play-to-win games, and I'm like,
I may have played like 3 play-to-win games.
No, Robert played a lot more than that, and I'm like, guys, I think I'm going to bow out, and I'm going to go play... I think they played Star Realms or something, or Fantasy Realms. I can't even remember anymore. I went and played Potion Explosion with a random group. Had a blast. I won. Yay. Had a great time. A lot of trash talking going on. Potion Explosion... feels almost like a app-based phone game where you're pulling marbles of different colors from different tracks. If you ever pull a marble of a color and the two that are on the opposite sides of it, adjacent to that marble you pulled, come together and collide, and they are the same color, you then get to pick those and add that to your tableau as well. And if you do it again, boom, that's the Potion Explosion aspect, right? You pull one marble, 2 of a color smashed together, you get to pull those. So try to build these daisy chains to get as many marbles into your hand as you can, and then you're going to pluck them and put them on your Bunsen burners. You've got these potions that you're brewing, and they're seeking certain colors. When you fill that potion up with the colors, the marbles that you need, and the amounts that you need, you then complete that potion, you set it aside, and now it becomes a usable potion that has different abilities that can change marble colors. It can multiply marbles. It can steal marbles from other players. So it's a lot of interaction in what lanes you take, in using your potions to attack other players, to grab what they have. We were yelling at each other a lot. Marbles were being tossed around. It was pretty cool. A lot of fun. Potion Explosion by Cool Meanie or Not. I won.
I think that brings me to the end of my list of games. Same for you?
Yeah, I'm it. That was Sunday, and it was sad because it was so fast. It was so fast. And that was also spring break for my family, so that following Tuesday was their first day back. We ended up driving back all the way from Lafayette to Tampa on that Monday. I think we got home around 1 o'clock that morning. We left at 8 and made it home at 1. Still worth it, though.
Well, next time you guys come down, I hope you guys come down with a little bit of spare time so you can kind of come down to my stomping grounds for a little bit. I know you guys you guys saw Lafayette, you saw the gaming convention and the festival across the street, and then that was about all we had time for, But you guys got to see a lot of New Orleans, so that was nice. Yes,
it was a beautiful area. The folks in Lafayette were just amazingly kind. We can't stop talking about it at home. Even the service we got at Taco Bell at 3 a.m. was the best Taco Bell service I've ever had in my life. The friendliest.
I love this story.
And they usually will throw in just a couple of sauces, right? No, they put in just the right amount of sauces that we needed. Just the manners and the napkins. There's napkins in there. They literally the best service I've received from a Taco Bell after midnight.
Another detail we missed from the story that first night whenever we went to Taco Bell, this man across the screen from me ordered a dozen tacos, and we railed on him the entire rest of the weekend that he ate like 8 of them or something. He's like, yeah, I'm going to keep the other 4 for walk-in. So we need a walk-in taco, a sleeping taco.
I shared them with
for
Connor.
Every occasion.
I shared them with Connor when we got back. If you're buying Taco Bell at a con, you got to buy a party pack. Bring it back with you. You'll make a lot of friends. And then later that evening, you won't have as many friends.
I think you and I had a couple times of farting on each other.
Yeah, we had some competitions there. We're getting very sophomoric, but I'm okay with that.
Indeed. Yeah, it was a good time. I hope those of you listening might check us out next year. And again, I don't have exact dates, but I'm sure you'll hear about it whenever it comes around.
And hopefully we'll get back to a regular cadence for getting our audio podcast back up. It'll be up Sundays, every other Sundays. We're going to try to get one out there. We've also got the show live streaming every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Call into the live call-in show. Watch, subscribe to us on YouTube. We actually started just streaming that show on Twitch and on Facebook, so multiple platforms for you to watch it on.
And whenever Carlos says we'll get back into a cadence, he really means him. We were supposed to record this a while back, and he canceled it on me like a few minutes before, you know.
Okay, so that was a bit crazy. Like, we had scheduled it, right? And then I had a Blood Bowl match the day before, but then that guy said, oh, no, I had to cancel my Blood Bowl match. Can we move it to the next day? And I said, yeah, sure. And so I'm sitting at Armada playing Blood Bowl, and I'm like, I feel like I got to be somewhere. And then it suddenly hit me. It was like 15 minutes before we were starting to record. I was like, oh, Mitch, I'm so sorry. I completely, like, yeah.
No, there was no I'm so sorry. I think it was just like, can't make tonight, period. And then nothing else.
Middle of the Blood Bowl match. I'm like, can't make it. I'm out.
Yeah, but no, the call-in show, you guys have been getting a lot of traction lately. I mean, the other night I had to dip out for a little bit because I was at my theater, but you guys had a lot of calls that night, huh? Last couple Thursdays, right?
Back to back. There was a stretch of, I think, 4 phone calls where I didn't even get to hang up the phone before the call was coming in. So as we're wrapping up that call, the next call's coming in. So I hang up with that person and answer immediately to the person that's already calling. So it was like no buffer in between the phone calls, and that felt really good.
That happened to me. We talked for about 5 minutes about SoBo, and I was like, yeah, I can't wait to see you guys again. And Carlos was like, got another call, bye. I was like, okay, dang.
Like, I knew we were towards the end of our conversation, and it was a new number that I didn't know before. So it's like, oh, if we got a new person, I don't want to miss that. So I felt like it was the right time for us to. I got to figure this out. Like, I know I can get into some really long conversations with folks, and I really want to have those long conversations. But I guess I got to balance out the, if new callers want in. So we'll figure this out. It's a work in progress.
It's fine. You got to get Julian in there to have somebody on call waiting. Please hold.
Well, I mean, if you guys all jump into our I don't know, cash me on Cash App, Cash App Beans and Dice, the $ Beans and Dice. If we're getting money, then I can buy software that manages phone lines. They have call-in show phone lines. Like, you can have multiple phone lines with screenings and put them on hold. So it's the technology's there. It's just the funds is what's lacking. But cash me on Cash App.
Stop spending so much money on your Glowforge.
I'm hoping that'll help fund. Like that to me that's not like another job or anything. That's just funsy stuff. But if I can use it to help fund the show, I'm in. And
so I got to bring this up. I know we're kind of off topic here, but you posted earlier today, I think in the Discord, like, hey, I made some X's for Ark Nova. And I'm like, you don't even have the game. It's like, oh, Dan lost one of them, so I made 50. And it's like, it already comes with like 50 of them. You're not going to use all of those in one game. That is just overkill.
Well, the game comes with 20, so I figure a set needs to be 20. So I printed out 20 of them. And I'm loving it because I etched them and scored them so they look like the tokens from Ark Nova. And then I wanted to fill them, and I hate painting. I hate it. And then suddenly I remembered the old school technique of using a white crayon. I don't know if y'all are older gamers like me. Back in our day, when you got your dice, they had no color on them. You got dice, they were imprinted, and you had to take a crayon and rub the crayon on the dice faces. And then you come in with a cloth and you buff it off.
How old are you? Oh my God.
I'm 41. It's oldish, old enough that my first set of dices didn't come with colors on them, so you had to rub them with a crayon and then buff them off. And I'm like, I wonder if that'll work on these acrylics. And sure enough, Bruce Leroy, sure enough, they worked.
And your poor children have no crayons left. Right?
Yeah, I had that kid like, hey, go get Poppy a crayon from your room now. I only have one white crayon. It's mine
Nobody
now.
uses the white. White doesn't show up on any color paper. So
right, it's mine now. So I'm pre-show. I'm over here rubbing tokens with white crayon.
Man, you've been having dice since the olden days, man. I have never heard of that.
If you folks comment below if you know what I'm talking about. I think it's Dicegenics.
Maybe that's a Puerto Rico thing, huh?
No, it was here in America. It was at Merlin's Games is where I got my dice from. I might send you a set. When they closed out, they had huge tubs of them. So I grabbed a whole scoopfuls for $1. And I still have them in baggies here. And I'm told that now these are pretty rare collectible dice.
I'm assuming these are all D6s?
No, the D6s, D8s, D10s. So the whole D&D spectrum. All the polyhedrals. D20s.
So you're coloring in these little bitty numbers.
Yep.
Wow. I was just thinking just the pips on a D6.
You wax in the numbers, and then you buff it off with a cloth, and boom, you got white numbers on your dice.
Interesting. We got way off topic, but that's interesting.
That's the after show. Is how we do.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we talked. And we deserved a long show. We're at over 2 hours now. We deserved a long show. It's been a while.
Those of you still listening, the one random person in Alaska, thank you for sticking with us.
That'd be Ben. Ben from Alaska. All right, folks. Have a good night. Thanks for sticking around with us. I'm Carlos.
I'm Mitch.
And we are a podcast about how we game. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good night. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.